Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here at another session of the Georgia House of Representatives Committee for Science and Technology. And we are very fortunate today to have the President of the Technology Association of Georgia with us to make the presentation. What is this, the 5th year? Yeah, 6 years, something like that. And Mr. Tino Mantella is here to give us an update, I believe, on what's happening with TAG. Thank you, sir, and I turn it over to you.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman and representatives. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. You're going to get a preview this morning. You're going to be the first to see a video. We're going to do that in a minute. So, but it's interesting. It's been a year since last time I was in your presence, and a lot's happened. One of the things that was very positive is the governor actually went to McKesson. I think the first time in recent history that he actually identified technology as a leading industry, so that was extremely important, and that carried a lot of weight. In fact, we had millions and millions of media impressions all over the country from that statement. So, and anecdotally, I was with a gentleman that's in one of our committees for Leadership Council, which is our societies, a couple of weeks ago, and he had just been out to California and visited Facebook and a couple other companies out there. And he said that each place he went, they asked about what's happening in Georgia in a positive way in terms of technology, and they also made note of TAG. So we thought that was very positive in respect to starting to get the attention of the nation in terms of Georgia being a leading state for technology. Another positive thing over the course of the last year was the governor signing Senate Resolution 68, and it gave us an opportunity, and Representative Dudgeon and others were involved with that, but to go around the state. We went to 8 different communities, and we heard from technology leaders across the state, and they told us what they needed, and we brought that back, and we've created some suggestions around that, and hopefully we'll have a second year to work on actually creating a strategic plan for technology and science. There's about 9 states that have that in the country, but I always like to say, a state without a plan plans to fail, and there's an opportunity here to really get a jump start on the rest of the nation by creating something along the lines of a strategic plan for technology and science.
Let me interrupt you, Jeff. The other night you gave me a number of your membership. Would you please tell the committee how many people you have now?
Yeah, so from a TAG standpoint, we have over 15,000 members now. So it's probably the largest technology association, trade association for technology in the nation at this point. So we're proud of that. It's been growing, and I don't have a lot about TAG this morning, but we're growing. We have 30 different special interest groups. We do a lot in the opportunity to connect the community through over 200 meetings a year, but we're also doing a lot more in economic development in terms of both the legislative side, which hopefully you're seeing our presence more and more each year, and also on the public relations side. So we want to make sure that Georgia's up there as a top state for technology, and that's my goal. That's TAG's mission. Another thing that's happened over the last year, in spite of a 9.7% unemployment rate, technology employment's on the rise. So we have a number of statistics in that area, but there's now over 250,000 technology jobs in the state, and it has grown. It's actually, we have one of the fastest growing technology sectors in the nation. We've also been able to identify clusters where we lead. I'll talk a little bit about that. later on in my presentation. But one of the things that we've said from a standpoint of government facing is it's important to look at areas where we actually have a leadership position, because when you have a strong cluster, it creates a great opportunity to build business around that. And so we have a number of clusters where we're actually in the top 5, and we've been able to identify those. We've actually created maps, and I'm happy to share those maps. We didn't bring them today, but in each of those clusters that identified all the companies that we could identify in those areas. And so we think that's a real positive piece as well. And we've had a number of discussions around legislation, support, and growth for technology. And one of the areas I think that we've been talking about, and hopefully something will come of it, we were just talking about before we came up here, is access to capital, access to funds. And that's an area that we really need to make a change in if we want to create a leadership position for Georgia in technology. We're just short in that area, and I have some slides to show you that as well. So, and I want to thank you all, Chairman and all the representatives, for your leadership and your support, not just this year, but over the years. And
would you mind if we ask questions as you go along?
Yeah, go ahead, whenever you'd like to do that.
Representative Baptist.
All right, thank you. And thank you. Enjoyed dinner the other night.
Yes, thanks for coming.
One of the things that we talked about was angel investors, trying to encourage those to come into Georgia, whether it be in whatever field of interest. Have you, from the technology side, have you looked at the opportunities of some of those who have some capital that would be interesting? That's from a private sector.
Right.
But some of those that we had identified, I know in Ways and Means, and we were trying to make that an incentive. Have that been an opportunity that y'all have looked into?
Well, I think in terms of angel investing, typically the angels are, as you know, people that have made money,
A lot of money.
and they want to reinvest it, and we like to encourage them to invest in technology. At one point there was a lot more interest, I think, in investing in real estate, but that might have, now we might have an opportunity from a negative, but to actually get people to invest. So there's several groups. There's one in Savannah, there's one in Atlanta called Atlanta Technology Angels. There's other groups of people that have clustered together that are investment groups. Some of them work better than others, frankly, and some investors go to the investor meetings, but they keep their hands in their pockets, and others actually invest. So, but the question, I think the broader question is, how do you stimulate investment in Georgia, not just for technology, but how do you stimulate investment for companies that, the term I've heard is gazelles, companies that have a lot of potential. It was just on the news again this morning that almost all of your growth in America has been through small companies, right? I mean, if you look at what's happening now, a lot of times it's kind of on the quiet side, and you'll see big companies, I'm not going to say any names, but big companies that are reducing staff quietly or not so quietly with announcements. And then there's small companies. I could name 20 small companies that are growing. There's a company that called AirWatch that is the chairman just has joined our board of directors. Started with 50 employees, went to 350, and now they want to go to 700 employees in a matter of 2 years. And part of that is because they're in a space, mobile security. How do you secure your cell phones? How do you secure your tablets? What does the company control? What do you control? So hitting those right industries. But most companies need that investment, and Georgia's short on that investment. We think one of the things that we helped start was Venture Atlanta, where we bring in over 100 venture capitalists from around the country to invest in, to see 40 companies from Georgia showcased. And they get up and they talk for 6 minutes about their business. And over the course, I think we started at, this will be our 4th year, there's been almost $1 billion invested in the companies that were showcased there. So if we can bring them in to see what's happening here, and mostly the VCs, I think, versus the angels, companies that do this for a living, if we can bring them in and stimulate activity, because we really only have about 4 VC firms right now in the state, which is pitiful. And so we need to bring in more venture. And one of the bills, 718, calls for that. And I was in Salt Lake City visiting my counterpart there, the head of the Utah Technology Council, and they created a fund of funds a number of years ago that's a fund to fund investment firms to come in. You have to come into the community, you have to have a person there, and you have to invest whatever the state had given back into the state of Utah. And they were able to create a number of new VC firms that came into town. And Utah is one of the fastest growing technology states in the nation right now. So that's a long answer, but I think that 718 is really important in respect to creating opportunity for investment. And if we don't have that, then companies will leave the state because they'll get pulled out of the state by investors that say, I'll invest in you, but you have to come to California to get that investment. So now we're going to show you, kind of bring the story to life. You actually are the first group to see a video that we've created, and Becky's ready to show that. And this is something that we want you to
Number 1 in the nation for entrepreneurial activity. Voted among the top 2 states in the U.S. for conducting business. Ranked among the top 10 states for the highest concentration of high-tech businesses. Georgia is a center of innovation and one of the top technology destinations in the world.
We are the green pastures that technology companies are looking for.
Georgia is a progressive state where cutting-edge technology, research and development, higher learning, business-friendly legislation, entrepreneurship, and a fusion of culture and leisure combine to create economic well-being and an unmatched quality of life. Technology fuels Georgia's economy. Over 13,000 technology companies employ more than 250,000 technologists with degrees from some of the top schools in the nation, including Georgia Tech, Emory, and Georgia State. Georgia schools produce some of the most highly skilled graduates in the world. The state boasts the 4th largest university system in the U.S., with 68 technical colleges and universities. And it's one of only 4 states with 2 or more schools ranked among the top 25 public national universities by U.S. News and World Report. This access to education and the presence of high-paying jobs, a low cost of living, and a superior quality of life has made Georgia one of the fastest-growing states in the country. The heart of this growth is in Atlanta and the surrounding metro areas. Ranked as one of the best cities in the U.S. for new grads, the thriving metropolis has become a top destination for the young, restless, and socially connected. In fact, Atlanta is frequently ranked one of the top cities in the world for social and mobile activity. Highly skilled talent, plus progressive economic development programs and policies, and resources dedicated to delivering some of the best and most affordable access to broadband and power in the U.S. have made Georgia a powerhouse for a technology-driven economy. Add to this the world's busiest passenger airport, 2 deepwater ports, and the most extensive transportation network in the country, and Georgia becomes a gateway to the world. Georgia's technology prowess is fed by established clusters of businesses focused on health IT, communication services, financial technology, information security, logistics, interactive marketing, and data centers. Georgia is the nation's capital for health IT and is positioned well among the top 5 states in the nation for the other leading clusters. Contributing to the success of these clusters is a thriving entrepreneurial community. More than 500 small businesses launch in Georgia every month. Entrepreneurs have access to a full ecosystem of resources, including a network of passionate and seasoned veterans and investors, venture conferences, and first-rate incubators. In fact, the Advanced Technology Development Center at Georgia Tech was ranked by Forbes among the top 10 best technology incubators in the nation. Regional and statewide industry groups, including the Technology Association of Georgia, complete the technology ecosystem with innumerable networking and educational opportunities and the celebration of the technology community's milestones and successes. The opportunities in technology are endless, and the quality of life in Georgia is second to none and able to fit every lifestyle. For the city-goers, Atlanta offers world-class entertainment and artistic venues, professional sports, museums, a burgeoning culinary scene, top-notch shopping, and a bustling nightlife. Head north of the city and experience Georgia's wine trails and national forests. Travel east and enjoy world-class golf courses, including Augusta National Golf Club, home of the Masters Golf Tournament. Journey to the coast and savor stunning ocean views, Epicurean delights, and the dramatic architecture of Savannah. Georgia is a beautiful, welcoming, and family-friendly state where your technology business and career can thrive and where you can enjoy an incredible quality of life. Technology is the future for our world, and Georgia is the future for technology.
Hopefully this was motivational, and this was created by TAG. Becky, we need to give her a shout out, and the company that worked with her in terms of making this happen. But our goal is, this is going on YouTube when, Becky? It's going on YouTube today. You're the first ones to see it. And we have a whole program to get this out around the nation, including something we call the Tweet 16. So we have, it'll run parallel to the Sweet 16, and we have 16 bloggers that are actually going to compete, and they'll move up the ranks, whoever wins, to get the word out the most in terms of this program. But hopefully you'll be, if there's other places we can show this, we haven't shown it to the governor, we haven't shown it to Georgia Department of Economic Development or the chambers. Many people helped us to do it. Tonight we can show it this evening in Augusta, so make sure Heather has that. We were opening up a chapter in Augusta, and tonight's our first night there. So, and another one in Macon, central area. So, but this is something that we created because one of the things we heard from you and that we saw from our members is that we're pretty quiet in terms of marketing. We're well kept secret in terms of technology. We're not known for technology, so it's starting to change, and this will be one of the things that we could do to make it change. Speaking of change, and we'll move to the next slide. There's a lot of new things that we're doing, and we want to focus on a couple of challenges. So if you look at the cartoon a minute there. It says you have excellent penmanship. Good. So what exactly does that mean? You know. So it kind of the point is there is really a need for filling jobs in Georgia and finding the right talent to fill the right jobs, and that goes back to some of the things you're working on in education. The chairman and I were talking about education, kind of the changes and what people are getting involved in today. But if you look at that, right now in Georgia there's over 4,000 jobs open in technology, and that even though the rate, as I said before, is 9%, if you look in the technology industry, it's actually 3.6% in areas like computer programmers and web developers, which all of us know that's basically zero when you start to think about it, that there's thus the shortage. It drops to 2.4% for computer and information system managers and 2.2% for computer hardware engineers and less than 1% for computer network architects, database administrators. And that's according to Robert Half Technology, that really is an expert in all of the kind of data gathering in this area. So low unemployment numbers in technologies correspond with the respondents to the 2012 Technology Decision Maker study that we did. And they said that system administrators and application developers are the most difficult positions to fill, and they're also the most important positions for them. So there's a challenge there. So that we have to find a way to develop, attract, and retain our technology talent in order to be able to keep pace with the growing technology community. I sit with people all the time that, they'll pound on their desk. I was with Silver Pop, another good company in this area, and he said, we have 20 positions, Java positions, that we can't fill right now. So if they can't fill them here, they're going to fill them somewhere else. They're going to outsource them. They're going to fill them overseas, whatever they need to do to get the job done. So move to our workforce is only as strong as the graduates that we produce. So there's some statistics up there. The National Science Foundation predicts 80% of the jobs in the next decade will require some form of math and science skills. It's 80% of the jobs. And the most recent STEM report card for Georgia, issued by the Alliance for Science and Technology Research in America, predicts that some 211,000 STEM-related jobs will be needed to be filled in Georgia by 2018. 211,000. And by 2020, it's projected that over 60% of jobs in Georgia will require a certificate, an associate's degree, or a bachelor's degree. And I think we all know that. So where are we today? We still have a big gap to overcome in STEM grads. According to the University System of Georgia, USG, currently only 42% of the state's young adults are prepared for these future careers. And the good news from USG is that 27.7% increase in STEM majors among participating institutions since 2007. So there has been an uptick, and there's also been 11.3% increase in STEM degrees given out since 2007. So there's some positives there. To remain competitive, Georgia must not only maintain current graduation levels, but also produce an additional estimated 250,000 graduates over the next 8 years. And the preparation starts in elementary school, middle school, and in high school, with a lot of work to be done, and interest in encouraging kids to be interested in STEM careers.
Can
Yeah.
I interrupt you just for a
Yeah,
second?
sure.
It's going to be tough producing that many interested students in this, and I'm not sure the numbers are there. I mean, our public education sometimes doesn't meet the standards here. What about people moving into the area? I mean, Atlanta is growing, Georgia is growing. Are people moving here for these jobs?
There is the chamber billed it the young and the restless population, and there's young, educated people moving in, not to the level that we need. And the challenge isn't just in Georgia in this; it's all over the nation. But Georgia, because of some of the challenges in our education system, is I would say more challenged. I've used that word a bit, but than some of the other states. So part of it's going to be recruiting people in, things like the video, going out, making sure our story's told, having good companies here that are going to stay here and recruit those jobs. And then part of it is growing our own and getting more kids into the STEM areas. You all know we ranked 37th in ACT scores and 48th in SAT scores, and we know there's some statistics that you can move around there depending on how many kids we have take the test. But it's still, yeah.
The interesting, when we're talking about education. Education is not cheap, and for those who are going from high school into college or a technical college, a university system, how many can receive scholarships from the technical industry that would probably have some bearing on them being retained by that company, maybe through a co-op environment? Is that presently happening? And
it's happening to a small degree. It's a great idea. I think there's a lot of potential. It takes even resource. I mean, TAG would like to play more of a role in that. There's a company called Wipro, which is one of the largest companies in India, that was probably getting a bad reputation as a company that pulled jobs out of the U.S. into India. And so I think they came up with a good strategy, and they began to locate in areas like Atlanta. They actually have a big presence in Atlanta, and now they've moved in other parts of Georgia, and they're actually hiring people for call centers and other technology, more sophisticated technology jobs. And they had a plan to go into the high schools, identify kids, give them internships, and if they stuck with the jobs, they'd pay their way through college and commit to a job when they got out. So pretty much your point. We've had some challenges even with them, according to them, to get them to be able to go into the schools, identify the kids, and make the program happen, basically. But I'm sure there's some other examples out there, but it's not prevalent yet. But I think there's some potential there. The technology industry is really willing to step up and play a role. One of the things that TAG does through our TAG Education Collaborative Group is we take rising high school seniors during the summer and we link them up with technology jobs. And they work for 5 weeks, and the company pays them $1,000 for that 5 weeks. And the good news side is we got 60 kids placed, and this year we want to get 100 kids placed. And these companies will hire those kids. At first they said, well, rising high school seniors, they're not going to be able to do much. You know, they'll be able to get our coffee and make copies. But to their surprise, and some of you know kids like this, these kids have a propensity already towards STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And we have all kinds of testimonials of how great these kids are, and a lot of them have been hired. But our idea was to create some stickiness, so if they go into these jobs the summer before their senior year, they're going to just make a stronger decision as to what they want to do, and hopefully go into one of the technology areas. So there's a lot of different programs going on. If we had more funding, we'd like to have 500 kids a year do that program. But the companies are hiring. We're looking to partner with groups like the Aerospace Innovation, the state's Innovation Center for Aerospace, and have them identify companies and other that would be willing to also do the internship program. So that'll be one of our key things. Another long answer, but there's a lot of potential. Yes?
Yes. You basically answered my question, but I would like to know, you say you start in high school. Have you all ever thought about starting at the middle school age level and having summer programs for kids to get them interested into the STEM? And how are you all connecting with the schools? Are you connecting with the schools to get them involved in the STEMs and to help identify kids as early as the middle school age?
You're absolutely right, and the TAG Education Collaborative is going to start working with the middle schools, and we have this program called Feed, Foster, and Accelerate. And the feed area is going to be a major effort on our part. It's going to take a couple years, but to just make parents, students, and teachers aware of the opportunities in science and engineering. Representative has background, chairman has background in that area, and I think oftentimes kids, boys and girls, maybe a little even more girls, they don't see themselves in the chute, if you will, in terms of an opportunity to have a career in a STEM area. They don't realize that the pay is twice as much, as an example, as the average pay. So you come out right now, and the average wage is about $80,000 versus $45,000 in the STEM area. So we want to focus more on that. That's the feed program, and then in the foster program, we're going to try to get the kids into our partners like First Robotics and other programs like that. And then in the Accelerate, we'll get them into the internship program and things like that. Now, are the schools all going to be receptive to that? We still don't know the answer to that, but that's going to be our effort. You're right, starting in the high school is too late. You're going to be able to get the kids that are already interested in it and keep them interested in it, but you're not going to be able to tell the sixth graders, you know, if you want to go into science, my executive director of TAG Education Collaborative tells an interesting story. He said he went into a 6th grade classroom, maybe a 7th or 8th grade, but he said we went into classroom. And he said, how many kids are interested in taking up a technology career? He said 2 kids out of the 60 raised their hands. Then he pulled out his cell phone. He goes, how many kids would like to work on making apps for these cell phones? Half the room raised their hand. So that kind of just goes back to the point. They don't really understand necessarily. And then they don't understand, well, more than 1 year of math or 2 years of math in high school is going to be important, and I need to take this in high school. One of the points I was going to make is this isn't even in any legislation this year, Richie. We haven't set this up, but I would like to see us look at maybe having a requirement in high school to take at least one technology course, like computer science or something like that. I mean, I don't know what the requirement is. I should know that before making this statement, but in terms of taking a language, I know when I was in high school, I had to take at least 2 years. It's 2 years now. So you have to take 2 years of French, but you don't have to take anything in technology. I'm not sure if that's current thinking in respect to the statistics that I gave you in relation to where the jobs are going to be, coming forward. I took 2 years of French, so it didn't do me a whole lot of good, but
you have some more questions here.
Yeah. Okay.
Representative Back.
Thank you. You can tell I'm a banker by my career because I talk about money. I am very interested in non-profit organizations and how influential they can be in scholarshiping, funding some things that maybe industry would not do. Has TAG looked at the possibility of establishing a non-profit foundation to get individuals to fund, which they would get their write-off for that, but earmark those for, and that's a terrible word down here, say earmark, but those funds would be going for specifically for technology training, maybe for summer programs, any of those things. Has that even been thought of in?
Well, we do have the vehicle right now to do that. We have a 501c3 called TAG Education Collaborative. So, just the lingo of how we're chartered. But TAG is a 501c6, which means we're a trade association, basically, and we can have a person down at the Capitol, et cetera, et cetera. But we created a C3 for the purpose of trying to get kids excited about math, science, technology, and engineering.
And that was, I'm sorry, tell me the
TAG Education Collaborative.
Okay.
We've been visiting the foundations, and we're still making our pitch to get more resources from organizations and individuals that can do that. There's a lot of competition out there. Basically, the budget right now, it's speaking to the the banker, is about TAG's budget is about $3 million, and then our TAG Education Collaborative budget is about $300,000. Our team was able to put enough funding together to hire the first full-time executive director back 3 years ago. So it was kind of a step variable thing where, okay, TAG had to get its act together, and now we'd start on that. They've built a board. We have a full-time executive director. We give out now about $15,000 worth of scholarships for different programs that we do, and then the internship program. So we're starting. We'd like to get to be a major player, sort of like the way we move with TAG, but we have to find more resources. And it's funny when we go into the foundations, they may say something along the lines of, and they're not wrong, but well, shouldn't the technology industry be funding this? And they do fund us, and we take about $150,000 out of the TAG budget now and give it to the TAG Education Collaborative each year. So we're starting to do that. That's the way we'd want to head, to do more and more in that area. But right now our feed, foster, and accelerate is where we're heading, and the feed is going to be something new where, as Representative Scott said, it's just to be an awareness effort, because you need to make kids aware first, and then we're doing some training, like before the internship program. One of the things that we found is some of the underprivileged kids, because when we took the 60 kids last year, there was 150 that immediately applied. This year there's already over 150. We haven't even really advertised the program yet, so it's catching on. But one of the things, when the companies were interviewing, they said that some of the kids weren't as strong in terms of resumes and being in an interview because they hadn't had that opportunity. So now we're doing a program prior to the internship. We're actually training kids with a focus on underprivileged kids on how to get ready for an interview. But every child that we called last year, every student that we called last year and said, would you like to do this job? Every one of them said yes, because the other challenge is Georgia was the #1 state, tied with California, for the most teenage unemployment. So these were some of the most talented kids. None of them had summer jobs. So we were glad to be able to get 60. It's still a small number, but that's where we want to go.
Representative
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to follow up a couple of things you said. Before you even said it, I had made a note about thinking about computer science as a graduation requirement. It occurred to me that, we teach the math and science in the high school curriculum, and the science curriculum talks all about how all kinds of things works, biology, physics, whatever. But the thing that's become the heartbeat of the economy and of everything else is that very few people understand anything about how this works. And if you get that sort of exposure when you're young, I think that'll put a lot more people. I know Senator Rogers has a bill in the Senate to move towards more digital online learning and to require an online course. And I strongly support that. But I think maybe a follow-on will be working. And coming from a school board background, I'm going to take that on as one of those things I'll look at is talking to the folks over at DOE and things and looking at the feasibility of making that a graduation requirement. Because if you think about it, how critical is that to our economy and from a use point of view? So anyway, I just thought that was funny that you and I had thought about that or mentioned that at the same time.
Yeah, it's the schools. A lot of the schools are behind the curve in respect to what the schools should be teaching in looking at what the jobs are that are being filled. So, no disrespect to the languages. They're important as well. And, my wife preaches on the importance of Latin that, she took for a variety of reasons in high school, and there's some benefit to that. But if you look at what the curriculum is in the schools today, and we're not the only state. In fact, we would be one of the first states to institute a requirement for computer science from our limited research that we've done. But it's just, we know that most of the jobs are going to need that everybody's going to need technology, but we don't really, you have to really work to even find those courses, and they're certainly not required. And kids could get motivated and excited about things like that because that's how they grew up much more than we did in terms of using their phones. And, we'll be saying, I wonder what this statistics is, and all my young staff will have it, on their phone before I'm like looking it up in the whatever, kind of thing. So I think that's a really good point.
Representative Scott.
Okay, speaking about the curriculum, and I know that in high schools they do have computer science where they just teach the basic computer skills. But as far as getting off into the technical side and dealing with cell phones or any type of application like that, I don't think a lot of schools are equipped with that. Or they do not have anyone per se to teach those skills, so that will be something that they will have to look at. But they do have to have a computer class, but it's just a basic teaching them basically how to use the computer in high schools, but they do not go all into detail about the technology part of it.
Yeah, I think it would be a gradual climb to get to that level, but I know there's some bills out there now that are looking at creating more digital content. Probably be money savings over time. We've all talked. I know Representative Dudgeon and I've had the conversation about the kids that are carrying the 50-pound backpacks on their back with all the books. And then you go to, some of the schools, and they have a light tablet that they were given, and, they get, as history changes, so another country in Africa changes their name, you have a book that's 2 years outdated, where on your digital content you'll be able to upgrade that. So there's all kinds of reasons to do that, and you're going to save money over time. Maybe some of that money could be put into more technology in the schools, because they all need to have a better, many of them need to have not just more computers, but the whole system set up. In some of the rural areas, is there even enough high-speed networks and broadband to make that happen? I want to make sure I'm answering all the questions. So.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we'll go through pretty quickly some of these things, Becky, just in respect to time. We talked about the. Let's just go to the industry clusters. So we're on the industry clusters. So we talked about these areas where we lead. Health information technology. We have over 200 companies there today. So there's a lot of potential in that area. Information security, financial technology, communication services, logistics are 5 of the areas that we've identified, and recently we've added interactive marketing and also data centers to that area. At the summit, hopefully some of you're all invited to the summit. Richie can have a table at the summit if he needs. I know it's March 28th, and it's in the middle of one of your days. You'll have sessions, but if you can make any of it, it's a good program. We'll have about 1,200 people there. It's our biggest event of the year, and we'll be unveiling the economic impact study that we did. And I can just tell you today that the number in terms of what the technology industry in Georgia represents is significant. And I think you'll be extremely impressed with that, and it's going to make some noise, because when you factor in the number of technologists and technology companies out there, and you factor with the amount of disposable income they have, and you look at, then you can kind of translate that, extrapolate that into Georgia's investment, you're going to see that technology is right up there and very competitive with the other industries. It's just going to make more of a case for technology and for focusing on the clusters. And sometimes when I talk about the clusters, if you look at the Kia plant, which isn't one of the technology clusters that we've identified, but around West Point in that area, all the companies that have sprouted up to support the Kia plant. Well, the same thing happens with financial technology. So what happens when First Data headquarters moved to town, and NCR moved to town, and you have Global Payments here, and you have CheckFree that has a major presence here. There are now Fiserv, TSYS in Columbus, just 5 off the top of my head that are your 80% of the payment processing in the United States flows through Georgia. So we have a strong presence here, and that creates a lot of jobs for companies that want to sell to and work with NCR and First Data. So they're going to, and then the data centers are going to be there to support that, and the fiber has to be in the ground. So it stimulates the whole economy. I'm going to quickly move to entrepreneurs. We mentioned it in the, these are some of our young companies that are growing, and Georgia has been identified as the #1 state in the nation for creation of entrepreneur businesses. We have over 500 a month that are created here in Georgia. A lot of people don't know that. Now, they're not all technology businesses, but there is a lot of business being created, so it makes the case for having that access to capital as a key piece to support the entrepreneurs. And we do a lot of work with entrepreneurs. So even at the tech boom, we lagged behind California, Massachusetts, and Texas with only 2% of the VC dollars here. Of the total VC dollars getting, even at our peak, we were at 2%. And if you look at that stat, so California has 50%, and so we're not even, I mentioned California, but if we look at Massachusetts, we can get up there, or Texas. We're pretty comparable with with North Carolina and Florida, I don't think that's something we should be overly proud of. We really need more of that VC money. So that represents about $350 million a year. Yeah.
So we're third on that list, but is that?
Well, we're third in that we only put like a sampling
fourth
benchmark. We're
okay.
probably
so,
number 20 or
okay, so
50.
we're way down on that list.
We're
we need
about
to be
10
improved.
normally in the technology circles.
And you had said earlier there is a venture capital in Savannah. And I'm from Savannah, and I admit my ignorance there.
Yeah, there's a small angel group. Richie we can get you the name of that group, but there's a group of maybe 20 or so investors that we've met with out there that meet on a regular basis. We also opened an office in Savannah, so you may know that. So we have one staff person out there now, and we're trying to. Right. And one other side point, in Savannah, we're doing we want to do a major STEM event out there where we recognize the school and the company that do the best job in the STEM area, and we decided to put that event in Savannah. But yeah, that's just, we benchmark, so this is better to look at where the money comes from. So Southeast has a small piece of that, and Georgia gets about 30% of the VC dollars in the Southeast. So, you know, the thing we can do about it, I talked about House Bill 718, excuse me, and you know, there's some information there. The bill's modeled after successful programs in states like Tennessee, South Carolina, and Arkansas. The idea is to auction up to $200 million in credits against policy premium taxes paid by insurance companies and create a state authority to select third-party fiduciary management. And all the money would be invested back into Georgia. We'd be pulling more VC firms in. And it would be a great way to stimulate the economy. I know that now that the governor, I know the money's tight, but if there's anything that this group can do to help drive that, it's, you know, hopefully I've made the case that this is extremely important. If we go to the next slide, Becky. So the pension fund, that's kind of an ominous slide there. So you see Georgia in red, and every other state in the nation that allows alternative investments to be used for a pension fund. And we know that that has some movement this year, Senate Bill 402, and would allow for the employee retirement funds, the state retirement funds, not schools, are excluded from that, to be able to do this. If you think about the market uptick, I think we almost hit 13,000 for a minute or two yesterday. So the market is coming back; it's stronger. And if you think about what the benefit would have been to have more or any alternative investments during the peaks, that's a great opportunity. Richie told me, I don't know if it's statistically correct, but if we've got that for sure, but we think, you know, North Carolina, for example, is what we said this morning, heard this morning, is they're investing about 30% of their dollars, their pension dollars, in alternative investment right now. So we don't even have the opportunity to do that. We've been preaching this now from TAG ever since I've been here, and I know that the preaching started before I got here, so hopefully that'll be something that we can drive forward.
Question.
Yeah.
Wasn't under Bush as governor of Florida when they committed something like $1 billion over 10 years out of the pension funds into, I believe it was out of their pension funds into this?
Florida, every state has there's two things going on. It's all about trying to generate money for access to capital. And other than Alabama, there's a fund like 718, something like that in the Southeast. Every other state has something except for Georgia. Florida made a major investment. I think it was, do you know the number, Brandon, Richie? I think it's maybe close to $1 billion over 10 years. So they figured out how to do that. And then some use their pension funds. What we have is a couple bills. One is allowing our fund managers at the state to have the ability to utilize alternative investments when they feel it's prudent, and it's totally up to the decisions made. I think the limit has been 5% typically. And then the other is the 718, which is creating a major fund which we really need to be specifically for Georgia companies that would roll into Georgia. So both of those are needed. Right now it looks like the pension fund one is getting more traction, but hopefully there'll be interest in both of those.
Oh.
Yeah. So let's just move to the next. I think we're almost out of time. So in Georgia's rankings, one of the things is we have a strong infrastructure here. We're home to the world's busiest airport, as you know, and the fastest growing container port. With 94% of the state covered, Georgia has more broadband coverage than any other state. We have one of the most robust fiber systems in the world, and we're primed for communication services. But there's still work to be done, and while Georgia's talking about technology leaders, we'll continue to hear about the importance of digital jobs and how these communication data center jobs will be growing trend for years to come. We were trying to drive some legislation around data centers and looking at a way for energy tax credit as part of a bill or another latching on to another activity. But the idea there is that we are really poised to be a leading state in the nation for data centers. We already have over 50 major data centers, and they create some jobs. They also create a lot of energy around investment in the facilities, investment in the servers and other units in those facilities, the fiber in the ground, the broadband, and they also create a lot of jobs from secondary from companies that, like NCR, that specifically wanted to locate where they did because of the data centers. There's talk now, I think there was something in the Business Chronicle earlier this week about Microsoft putting a major data center here looking at this. But we can get that advantage if we create some advantage in how we set up legislation. So let me stop there because I know we're out of time. Just go to the conclusion slides there, Becky. So Georgia needs more talent. We want to improve the STEM education program. We have strong industry clusters, and the fact is strong infrastructure, but need to explore incentives that will help to grow us to an even stronger level. So I will stop there. We ran through because I liked all the questions. This might have been the record number of questions since I've been here.
Well, you have a very interesting topic.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Does everyone have their questions answered? Thank you again,
Thank you.
Mr. President, and it's
Thank
good to have you always.
Thank you very much.
This meeting is adjourned.